Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as a comeback coach. Yes, you are seeing me for the 6th time today. Thank you for Monster Energy for keeping me going. I appreciate you and I love you. Guys, this is going to be an awesome episode with my brother Christopher. We're going to teach you how to unfuck yourself because we've both been fucked and we both unfucked ourselves. We're going to be talking about resiliency, music. We're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff, RAS, NLP, you name it. We're going to be talking about it. But we're going 45 minutes, hard and heavy. You're not going to want to miss a minute of this. Christopher,
I'm already excited, man. I'm already excited. I love it.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I've been jamming. I went to a doctor's appointment with my son, took him to McDonald's, and now he's downstairs eating. I'm going to be helping somebody out after this, and then we're going to go swimming, and I'm just enjoying my moments as I usually do.
I love it, brother. And guys, I want to give a big shout out to the Mental Health Warriors. Without them, we would have never connected. So, Adam, I love you, brother. Thank you so much. So, Christopher, let me ask you first question off the bat. What is your definition of resiliency?
My definition of resiliency, and by the way, thank you, Richard, so much for having me on here. I appreciate it. I know we had a good time on the Mental Health Warriors podcast, so it's an honor to be here and to jam with you. I appreciate the parental advisory in the beginning, so I never know whether it's okay to swear or not. But yeah, my definition of resiliency is really continuing to go when you don't feel like it. Resiliency is all about having a bigger purpose and a bigger mission to have that self-discipline to overcome your excuses. For the people out there who are not familiar with me, I'm the no excuses coach. So it's basically, that's what you get with me. You don't get any excuses with me. And that is because I have lived my life in such a way where I've never stopped and I never gave myself excuses. And we can dig into my backstory if you want. But yeah, resiliency is really about just continuing to do something consistent every single day. That 1% improvement every single day, compounded over time, creates confidence, creates results, and creates a pretty kick-ass unstoppable life, which is what I teach people how to do.
And I love it. So Christopher, let's hop in because people may see you being successful. You're a successful coach. You have a great family. So many guitars and basses, but if they would have seen you years ago, they wouldn't see it's the same kind of person because your life hasn't been all sunshine, rainbows, unicorns, and Skittles, right?
No, not for sure. For sure. I was actually just at my doctor's office and I got to talking with a nurse and we were talking about math. And I said, well, I don't do too bad for a 7th grade dropout. And she's like, you were a 7th grade dropout? So I gave her the eclipse version of my life. But yeah, basically when I was 13 years old, I came home from junior high school and my mom informed me that we had lost the house because she saved her dying cat and spent the last $5,000 on her cat. And so we not only lost our house, but we had to move into our family station wagon with 18 cats and 4 dogs. And so for the next 4 ensuing years, from the age of 13 to 17, I experienced life on the streets and got to dig through dumpsters and go through a whole lot of stuff, which will be coming out in my book later this year. It's called It's Just You and Me, Kid. If people want to check it out, it's justyoundmekid.com. And it basically explains my story of being on the streets. Unfortunately, I tried to commit suicide twice, and fortunately, I sucked at it. I've been carjacked. I was attempted carjacking. And it wasn't until a gentleman put a gun to my head. He put a 9mm gun to my head. And this was after my failed suicide attempts. And I thought, I'm done with this life. I'm done with everything. And I told the guy, I said, if you're going to pull the fucking trigger, pull the fucking trigger. And I fully expected to hear a click and I figured I'd be in heaven. Fortunately, one of my buddies at this motel we were staying at, this very, very trashy, sleazy motel, he came running out. He's like, no, him and his moms are cool. The guy was black. He thought I was racist because as I was walking back into the motel, he says, hey man, I got a carton of Reds for $5. And I said, hey man, I said, I don't smoke Reds. It's cool. And so he thought I was bluffing because I had a cigarette in my hand. And he's like, oh yeah, bullshit. He goes, all white people smoke Marlboro Reds. And I said, no, bro. I said, it's not the case, but thank you anyway. And I kept walking and all of a sudden he came and intercepted me and stood in front of me. And he's, oh yeah, it's because I'm black. And you know, all you fucking white people are all racist and everything. And I said, dude, I grew up in Inglewood, which is here in Southern California in Los Angeles. It was a 98% black neighborhood. I was the only white kid on my street. We had to move because I was getting picked on and I had like, you know, racism towards me, I guess, if you will. And so I told him, dude, I don't care what the color of your skin is. I care what color the cigarettes are. And so when I reached into my back pocket to pull out my cool menthol cigarettes, which notoriously black people either smoke Cools or Benson and Hedges or Newports, all my black friends did. They made fun of me. And I went to pull out the cigarettes and he thought I was reaching for a weapon and he put the gun to my head. And that's where I said, if you're going to pull the trigger, pull it. And after that, honestly, Richard, I had to make a determination for myself at 17 years old, after taking care of my mother most of my life, even probably starting about 7 or 8, 9 years old. I realized that I was going to get out of the situation either in a body bag because I was doing bad things with bad people. I was going to get out of it in a police car because I was doing bad things with bad people. Or the third thing that came up on my list was that I was going to have to take responsibility for my life and leave my mother in that situation, because she had opportunities for us not to be homeless, but she chose her cats and her animals, and she had various psychological disorders. And so I chose me for the first time in my life, and things started to change.
So, and I think that me and you, we have a lot of things in common besides loving music.
I read your book.
And loving Bon Jovi and shit like that. We talked about that on the last Mental Health Warrior. But a lot of people wouldn't realize what it's actually like to eat out of a garbage can. Because I remember I was homeless. I was eating out of garbage cans. I was eating dented cans. A lot of people don't realize how good we have it now, but what it was really like to actually not know what you're going to eat out of a garbage can as a child and a teenager. So what was that actually like?
Well, fortunately, I never ate out of the garbage can, but what we did is we collected cans, newspapers, and bottles every single day. And what we would do is we would take them to a recycling center or a 7-Eleven, and the order of business was cat food, dog food, cigarettes. And then if we had any money left over, it was people food. But I did have this one cool arrangement with this guy at Burger King. He knew me and my mom were homeless because he would catch us going through their dumpster for cans and stuff, whatnot. And so he took pity on us. We slept in our car in a parking lot behind a Burger King. And so what he would do every day is, like, those sandwiches, like if you order a sandwich without ketchup and they put ketchup on it and you bring it back, those all go into a bin. And so what he would do at the end of the day at 3:00 is he would bring me those sandwiches. And so what we would do is we would cut off the part where somebody took a bite out of it and we would eat the rest. And for me at that point, that was like heaven. I mean, it was cold and everything, but having a cheeseburger or having cold fries or having a chicken sandwich or whatever it was every day was like golden for us. And to my mom's, to her side of things, it made it to where we didn't have to spend money on people food, and she could spend more money on cigarettes and cat food and dog food. But fortunately I never had to eat the food out of the garbage can, but in place of that, sometimes we went hungry, for a day or two, depending on, if it was raining outside, if we couldn't go collect cans or whatever the situation might be.
But now growing up in Inglewood, because I got a lot of friends in California, and in the summertime, it could be brutal. And you're living in a car with 18 cats and 4 dogs.
No shit.
How? That was when I was reading your bio, because I went deep. I did about 10 hours of research on you. I watched every video that I could find on you. How did you survive? Just even one day. I mean, I'm allergic to cats. So I'd be dead. So how did you survive living in a car in Inglewood in August?
Actually, we didn't live in the car in Inglewood. That's where I grew up for the first 6 years of my life. But it was in Orange County, which was about, an hour east of that, I guess, if you will, or an hour east or west. I don't know. I can't, I'm bad at directions. But yeah, you know what? Honestly, Richard, when I was writing my book, there were so many points in the book where I thought, how can I even say this out loud? Who's going to believe this? I would love to have had a camera and being able to see exactly how we did it. But it was all a matter of finding shade. So we would go to parks and we would park under trees. What I did originally is I put black hefty bags. It was a 1969 Country Squire station wagon with the wood paneling on the side with the back jump seat that popped up. Yeah. Just to give everybody a visual. And so I put hefty bags along the back windows and I taped them in such a way that it looked like the windows were just limoed black. So I taped it like that. So that helped keep the sun out of the back of the car. We kept the windows cracked. It was always about the water, but we would park under shade trees. And we just survived. So we were down towards South Orange County. So it was around Costa Mesa, Huntington Beach. So the weather was cooler there than where I live right now in Riverside, where it's, it gets really hot. But we just survived. We just did it. We would take the dogs to parks and get the dogs out of the car so that they would be okay. But yeah, there were some days where it was pretty bad. The cats would be panting and it was pretty terrible.
All right. So, whenever I ask this question, because I know, and we've talked, I've had 3 moments in my life they were literally my come to Jesus moment. So anybody that's been through the shit, I always ask this question, and it throws them off, my guests off a lot, because I'll ask them, what was the day like before you had your oh shit moment? What was the day of having your oh shit moment? And what was the day after having your oh shit moment? Because a lot of people, they talk about their before moment, their during moment, but they never talk about the action after their oh shit moment. So talk about those 3 days that changed your life.
Sure. No, that's a great question. I've never been asked that question, honestly. The days up preceding that moment where I had the gun put to my head was all about survival. It was all about, I worked 3 jobs at the time. I worked a telemarketing job, I worked a construction job, and I worked a fast food job. And so I basically worked 7 days a week while my mom played in police informant to this motel we were staying at for a while. And also she was working for a drug dealer. So she was working, like, leading this double life. It was pretty insane. But the days up until that were all about survival. It was all about just trying to get through the day with an actual belief that somehow something was going to change. My grandfather was trying to get us a house, but my mom wouldn't give up the animals. So that was a problem. But every day was just about surviving and trying to find a way to distract myself from the situation I was in. So at a very early age, I started drinking. I started smoking pot. I started doing drugs. So for me, it was about finding the ability to escape. And that's where my love for music really deepened, because I realized that as long as I could focus on music, that would take my mind away from the distraction of the fact of how miserable my life was. So it was pretty miserable up until that point. But at the day after, I just felt like, okay, now I need to take action on this, right? I made the determination. I didn't want to wind up dead. I didn't want to wind up in jail, because a lot of my friends wound up in jail. I didn't want to join the military. My friends were joining the military and they were saying, oh, you should join the military. And I'm like, I'm not cut out for that. God bless all my brothers and sisters out in the military. So what I did was I started, okay, I'm gonna have to make this tough decision to tell my mother that I'm going to leave. And I truly believe in this, because this happened for me, that a couple of days after I made this determination, me and my buddy used to telemarket out of a guy's apartment in Huntington Beach, which was kind of crazy. I lived in Anaheim in a sleazy motel. And I should say I stayed, I didn't live. And we went to work one day. It was one of my jobs. And we walk into his apartment. And by the way, it was setting roofing appointments. It wasn't no sex lines or any shit like that, because I get asked that a lot. We walk into his apartment.
Sure.
He had already shut down his office, and he kept me and my friend Robert as the only telemarketers left. He says, well, guys, I got some good news and bad news. And I said, well, fuck, I've had enough bad news to last me a lifetime. And he says, well, here's the deal. He goes, as you guys know, I already closed up my office. He goes, to operate here in California, it's too expensive. And this was back in 1987, I think it was. He goes, so what I want to do is I'm going to close up my office. I'm going to move to Dallas, Texas. He goes, but I know you guys live in that cheap motel. He goes, what I'd like to do is leave you my apartment. That way you don't have to come up with the down payment, the deposit, first month's rent. He goes, basically you can just move in there. And so Robert and I just look at each other and go, oh my God, to live in Huntington Beach, Surf City with a 2-bedroom apartment. I mean, he had beautiful grounds. It was amazing compared to, we both stayed at this motel. And in that moment, I realized, I'm like, okay, this is the opportunity. This is the opportunity for me to get out of the situation. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, well, fuck. And he's like, man, we could do this. We get my brother, John, we can get a couple other guys. It was a 2-bedroom apartment for $850 a month, which I'm sure now is probably $3,000 a month. And we just started thinking like, look, we could do this. We could do this. And then it hit me. I'm like, well, shit, now I'm really going to have that conversation with my mom. And so we were driving home that day, and he's like, okay, let's tell her, we can move in, like he's getting all excited. And I'm just sitting there thinking, fuck, how am I going to tell her? Like, I'm the only person making any money. She relies on me heavily for everything. And I've spent my entire life trying to earn her graces and to be in her good graces. And I never really received that. So it took me a couple of days to be able to finally have this conversation with her. I was sitting on the steps of the motel and I was watching the prostitution and the drug dealing, and it literally was something out of a movie. I can't even make this stuff up. I know you've seen it. And then I went in and I had the conversation with my mom in her room. I stayed in another room with another buddy of mine, because I couldn't stay in the room with all the cats. It was nasty. She did her best to keep it clean, but it was 18 cats and a dog. And by that point, we got rid of 3 dogs by that point. Long story on that. And so I thought, you know what? maybe I'm overbuilding this. Maybe she'll actually finally tell me, you know what, Chris, go live your life. I fucked up your life enough. I never knew my biological father. She was going to give me up for adoption when I was born, all this stuff. And I thought, you know what, maybe she'll say, Chris, go live your life. And so I tell her the situation. I said, we have this opportunity to move into this apartment. I said, you're not doing anything to change the situation. Even while we were homeless, she won the lottery. She won $5,000 on a scratcher ticket. We didn't get an apartment. We didn't get anything because her thing was, we're going to get a 4-bedroom house with a pool. And I'm like, Mom, you're fucking crazy. Like you're
for $5,000. Where does that?
You're not even working. She used to be a purchasing agent. So she had a pretty decent job that made decent money before. But when we become homeless, she didn't ever go back to work. And so I tell her the situation and she pauses and she looks at me and I'm like, oh, well, maybe she's going to be all right. And then she's like, you're fucking greedy. You're an asshole. How could you ever do this to your mother? You're a son of a bitch, calls me every name in the book. And my feelings were so hurt, Richard. I was like so upset because I felt like I had an obligation. I felt like I had a service, like I was indebted to her for some reason. But thankful to me and to my friends, I kept my promise. And although I left the motel, I still went back there every single night. God is my witness. I still, you can ask my ex-wife. I went back there every single night and I gave her money and I still lived at the apartment and I still managed to keep things going for her and for myself. And then ultimately what I found and what I learned, which I didn't know about at the time, was codependency. And so because I left her alone, she had to get stronger. She had to start taking care of herself. She actually finally got a job and she finally bought a car and she got her shit together. And I mean, it took many, many years of me having to be on call at a drop of a hat. Hey, the car broke down. I need you to come to Compton to help me out. Hey, I need money because of this. And I would do everything for her because I left her in that situation because I felt guilty. But ultimately, she actually did get a 4-bedroom house with a pool from living in that motel because they actually widened the freeway over that motel. And so every tenant who had been there for a long time got a relocation fee, and she got $7,500 and she was able to buy a house here in Southern California, which she ultimately lost about 7 years later, which is another story.
And guys, if you're watching this, if you get a chance to pick up this book, it's called Codependent No More by Melody Beattie. Check it out. If you're struggling with codependency, that book is truly amazing. It changed my whole life. Okay, so now you got this job. Did you start crushing it right off the get?
No, I had the same job. Actually, what happened was because that guy moved to Texas, I had to get another telemarketing job. But while we were living in the apartment, one of the guys that I lived with, actually Robert's brother, he went and got a job at Kmart. And so we used to party all the time. It was the 80s. It was the decade of decadence. We had long hair, rock and roll, kick ass. So we had a party one night and these girls came over that worked at Kmart. And one of the girls was this girl named Tammy, who took a liking to me and I took a liking to her. And long story short, we wound up dating and I wound up meeting her parents. And that's where I really got the opportunity to meet somebody who believed in me, who saw inside of me, not saw the external long haired cigarette smoking 17-year-old dude with facial hair. He said, I know your situation. He goes, have you ever thought about going back to school? And I'm like, what is this guy fucking crazy? Like, I'm working 3 jobs. I'm eating ketchup sandwiches. I've got 5 guys in a 2-bedroom apartment. I've been homeless. I've seen things that nobody can ever unsee. And this guy who has furniture in a house that he doesn't even sit on thinks that I should go back to school. Like, really? Do you really think that's where it's at? I mean, I dropped out in the 7th grade, but he encouraged me to go get what's called a GED, General Equivalency Diploma. And because I was dating his daughter and they were living on the other side of the tracks, if you will, they were very wealthy and very nice. And she was a senior at high school. I said, all right, I'll try. And I figured because I was called stupid my entire life, I did poorly in school. I had a vision problem. I had a hearing problem. And plus I had ADHD, still have it to this day. But because he suggested to me and he believed in me that I could do it, I had to get on the good old fashioned telephone and I had to call the high schools around me, get through the yellow pages or the white pages, whatever it was. And I found a school that does GED testing. And so they said, well, here's what's going to happen. You're going to come in, you're going to take the test. We're going to see where you place. And then we'll give you what's called continuation homework. And, you'll do that homework and then you can take the test again. And so I went in there to take the test, and everything for me, Richard, is about that next step. That next step. I was just explaining this last night on my podcast, just taking that imperfect action. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no faith in myself that it was going to happen. But because this person made the suggestion, I said, you know what? I'll give it a try. I'll give it a try. I'll give it my best. I'll give it my best. I went in there fully thinking I was going to fail the test. They were going to tell me I needed to go back to the 5th grade, but I took the test. A couple of weeks later, I got a letter in the mail saying, congratulations, you only need to make up 3 classes and we feel you can do it in about 6 weeks. And I was just like reading this letter going, are you fucking kidding me? Like me? Like I can make up high school in 3 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever it was. It might've been 3 months. I can't remember exactly what it was. So anyway, I went back to the school and they gave me the continuation homework and I did it. And I went back and I took the tests and I did this. And they said, I think you're ready to take the GED test. And so I took the GED test and I passed. And so I got the letter in the mail saying, you're officially a graduate. I went back and I showed it to my mentor and he says, great. He goes, what do you think about college? And I'm like, what does this fucking guy want from me? Like, Jesus Christ, are you kidding me? Me go to college? Like, that's never even been in my foresight. I got to work jobs. And, I figured the rest of my life was going to be about working 7 days a week to have, a little bit of time to drink a beer and watch a football game. But again, because he believed in me, I went to Golden West Community College and I went in there and I was scared shitless that they were going to kick me out. And I walked in that imperfect action. I figured all I have to do is walk through the door and ask him if I can go to school here. So I walked through the door, again, long hair, threw my cigarette out, walked in the door and I said, hi, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have a GED and I'd like to come to school here. Do you accept those? And she said, oh, absolutely. No problem. We accept GEDs all the time. Sometimes girls get pregnant, they have to drop out of school or, kids get emancipated or whatnot. She goes, okay, yeah. And then honestly, Richard, 3 hours later, I walked out with books in my hand, a parking pass, and a student ID. And I had my first class, which was an interpersonal communications class, which I thought, oh my God, they think I'm so stupid that I need to take a class to learn how to talk, which was probably the best class I ever took in my entire school career, if you will. But long story short, I wound up spending the next 12 years in college. And then I graduated with my master's degree the same year I bought my first house. When I was 30 years old.
So then let me ask you a question because Father's Day was just this weekend. And 4 people that I can, my real dad and 3 other mentors, they're all gone now. But it was because one of them believed in me. And one of them said, why don't you do this instead of doing this? But a lot of us don't listen to that one small voice till it's too late. But that gentleman, even though it was your ex-girlfriend now, whatever, he saw something in you.
Yep.
It might not have been what he said or how he said it, but something you listened to something, what he said for some reason. So a lot of us don't listen until that person is gone. So how important was he just having faith in you a little bit to even think, hey, why don't you go back to school?
It was massive, Richard. Without him in my life, I would probably be still in that situation. I'd probably be dead. But so much to the point, let me move this. On my arm, I have tattooed. I just did it last year. For everybody watching, it says, you're only limited by the parameters of your own mind. And right down at the bottom, I have his initials, WTW. His name was William T. White. And so he was the one that said to me, Chris, you're only limited by the parameters of your own mind. Which later in life, I found a Henry Ford quote that says, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And so because he said that, because he said, I'm only limited by the what's going on in here, if I change the way I think and I change the things that I do, the outcomes will change. And it won't be easy. I mean, I literally gave up my 20s to continue to go to school. It took me 6 years to get my AA degree while I was working full time. He wound up giving me a job at his trucking company. And then I spent 4 years getting my bachelor's degree. And then I spent 2 years getting my master's degree. For my bachelor's and my master's, I took accelerated classes. So instead of 18-week classes, they were 8-week classes. And so also I was working a full-time job by that time, building my career in corporate, which I just left in November of 2019. But no, because he believed in me and because he had furniture, literally he never sat on, and he had a car. He was one of the first people I ever saw with a car phone. And I thought, holy shit, this guy has a fucking car phone. He's smart. He's the president of a trucking company. His daughter's a nice person. These people are nice people. And they didn't look at me like, oh my God, you dug through dumpsters and you lived in a car. They just looked at me as a young kid who had a shitty life up until that point. And they believed in me. They, bring me over for dinner and they taught me things, and they were amazing people. And God is my witness. When I wound up marrying that girl, Tammy, she's still a dear friend of mine. We've been divorced for 35 years. We laugh about it. We could have a 35-year-old kid. But I was there with her father when he passed away. And I was in a room with all of his kids. his family members, but on one side of the bed, it was his wife, Beverly, who I just saw about a month ago. I took my son to see her. And it was me. And I was there. He had suffered a heart attack. He was in a coma, and they thought he was going to come out of it, and he didn't. So my ex-wife called me and she goes, "Hey, Dad's still alive, and I want you to be here. And we're going to take him off life support." And I didn't want to go, Richard. I didn't want to see him die, but I went there because I owe this to this guy. And so I was blessed, and I call it being blessed. I got to hold his hand as he took his last breath. And for me to be there for him, I'm like, dude, I said, Bill, I've got the kids, I'll make sure Tiffany and Tammy, I'll make sure everybody's taken care of. I'll make sure Beverly's taken care of. It's your time to go. It's your time to let go. And as I was talking to him, he took his last breath. And for me to be able to pay that back to him, even so many years after we were divorced, I think we've been divorced like 5 years by that point. He and I kept in sporadic touch because he was really hurt the fact that our marriage didn't work out. He called me like his son, even though he had 2 other sons. But for me to be there to finish that circle with him was amazing. So I honored him by tattooing it on my arm, because I tell everybody, and even so much so that his wife told me many years ago, she goes, "Stop quoting Dad." She goes, "Dad would want you to have that quote as yourself. So start saying you're only limited by the parameters of your own mind and saying that's your quote." But at least I immortalized it on my arm by I forged his initials. I remembered how he had the WTW. So I gave it to the tattoo guy and we immortalized it there. And whenever I'm having a bad day or downtime, people ask me what I do. I have mentors and I have coaches, but I put on my Bill White hat and I sit there and think, okay, if Bill was here now, what would he say? What advice would he have for me? And so I can just kind of channel him. I can hear his Buffalo accent in my head. And I just follow that advice because he was so wise. And I just love him and appreciate him. And his wife, still to this day, she's been widowed now for over 20 years. I see her. I was there when she got hit by a drunk driver. I was the first person in the emergency room. So, everything happens for a reason. And I just considered it a blessing that so much that I had that person in my life. And my true goal from that was to be that person for so many other people. And I've done that in spades.
All right. So, and I love that WWBD. What would Bill do? I love that. Yep. I think that's awesome. But now let's talk about no excuses, because I believe, like for me, and we'll talk about it when I'm on your amazing podcast.
Thank you.
I'm a 9th grade dropout, and I don't even have a GED, but I've read over 6,000 books. I'm speaking on stages with Russell Brunson and Richard Branson. I'm a three-time best-selling author, only because of I'm too dumb to quit, and no. I don't make any excuses. If I can't do something, I'm either going to figure out a way to do something, or I'm going to find a friend that can help me do something. So talk about the no excuses mindset.
It really is. It's about, because excuses are self-sabotage. And so when you decide to stop shooting yourself in the dick every single day with your excuses, like, I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't have the knowledge, I don't have whatever, that's a lack of resources. And so this day and age, there is no lack of resources. You have Google, you have YouTube, you have ChatGPT. The answers are there. The answers are there. So when people tell me I don't know how, or when people sit there and say, I've got these financial problems, I'm like, okay, what have you done in the last week? What research have you done? What books are you reading? What YouTube videos are you watching? What actions are you taking every single day to get out of that mess? Well, I don't understand that financial jargon. Okay, take one word at a time and start to learn it. Every single day, if you can learn 7 new words in 7 days, that's 49 new words in a week. Everything for me, honestly, Richard, is that 1%. How can I be 1% better today? And how can I be 1% better tomorrow? And what excuse am I coming up with the most? I don't feel like it. Okay, you feel like the results though, right? Yes. Okay, so yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. It's going to be whatever you think it might be. But on the other side of it, it's going to be worth it. And it's going to be so much more worth it because you got out of your own way. You didn't wake up today and say, I'm not a 5 o'clock in the morning person. I can't tell you how many people have said, I can't wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, the fuck you can't. I said, if I gave you $10,000 to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning for the next 20 days, you would wake up at 4:45 every single day, wouldn't you? Yeah. If I gave you a Lamborghini and said, you need to go start it at 5:01 every single morning, otherwise I'm going to take it away, would you get up every single day at 5:01 and go start that fucking car? Yeah. Okay. It's about leverage. It's about leverage. It's about having a big enough why. When you have a big enough why, you have a big enough how. And so that's what I teach people, is to get the excuses out of the way, get the people that are giving you the excuses out of the way, the people that are holding you back, that want you to be comfortably miserable, that want you to, misery loves company. When you get rid of those excuses and you take that imperfect action every single day, over time, 6 months to a year, I call it, you will change and you will develop this new belief system. You'll develop this new confidence. You'll develop the self-discipline to say, you know what? Yeah, it's going to be tough. And I don't particularly like getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, but I love how I feel. And I love the fact that I've stopped taking medications. I've helped so many people get off medications. I've helped so many people get out of debt. I've helped so many people quit addictions. I've helped so many people in so many ways that never thought they could do it. But every single day you take that imperfect action, you tell yourself you can, you focus on things that you're grateful for, you focus on the intentions that you're going to do every single day, you take that imperfect action and you become a new person. And that's exactly what I did. If I can go from being a 7th grade dropout to earning a master's degree, buying 2 houses, having an amazing corporate career, having an amazing speaking and coaching career, and I did a live radio show for 5 years. I've done my podcast for 5 years. I have an amazing wife. I have an amazing kid. I work my ass off at it, and it's a struggle for me sometimes, but I just sit there and I know that on the other side of those challenges are learning opportunities for me to become stronger, for me to come better, and then to help other people do the same thing. So that at the end of the day, when I die, my legacy will be written in the fact that I made the world a better place for who I was and what I did.
All right, so
what about you? What do you think about excuses? Because I want to get your take on this as well.
I spent over 23 years in the military, and they say that the maximum effective range of an excuse is 0 meters. So if there are no excuses, but I am not a morning person, so I may sleep an hour or 2 later, but then I go to bed an hour or 2 later. So instead of everybody going to bed at midnight, I might be up till 2 o'clock taking courses on LinkedIn, YouTube, and all that. So, but something I had a conversation this week with Brian Tracy, and something that we talked about was there's a difference between being busy and being successful. Like, even if you just took a half hour of focused, laser-like focused work, you could get more done that the average person does in 2 hours and 30 minutes. So it's not the amount of time that you're putting in, it's the effectiveness of what you're doing. Like, if I'm playing football and we're the Raiders, if I put up 500 yards but don't score a touchdown, it doesn't matter. I'll take 50 yards and 2 touchdowns and win the game. Then, you know what I'm trying to say? Because a lot of people say, oh, I'm busy. Yeah, but are you effective? It's a difference.
Exactly. 100%. I was just reading the comment, Pazzo AF. I'm not sure what that all means, but yeah, I mean, it really is. It's about being deliberate. It's about being sick and tired of being sick and tired, and deciding for yourself that you're not going to tolerate your own bullshit, other people's bullshit, and bullshit from inanimate objects. It's one of the best exercises I give people all the time. I'm out here to obviously earn an income, but at the same time, when you sit down and you write what you're not going to tolerate from yourself anymore, what you're not going to tolerate from other people anymore, and what you're not going to tolerate from inanimate objects, and you realize and you're honest with yourself and you build this list and realize, man, I'm tolerating a ton of stuff that I don't need to tolerate. And if you whittle down either the top 3 biggest things or 7 of the smallest things, that frees up your time, that frees up your stress, that frees up your brain power. That gives you a stimulus of thinking, oh, wow, if I can do this, what else can I do? And that's what it's all about. It's about changing the cycle of self-sabotage slowly but surely, so that you reverse that cycle, so that ultimately you start to get a charge out of accomplishing things. You start getting a charge of going to sleep at night and thinking, holy shit, what am I proud of today? I'm proud I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm proud that I was a great dad to my kid. I was proud that I crushed it on a podcast. I was proud that I helped my buddy out who needs to make $3,000 in 12 days, which I'm helping him out after this. You go to bed proud and you wake up feeling grateful, and you set the intention, and you surround yourself with kick-ass people, and you invest in yourself, whether it's YouTube videos or courses. Like you said, there's absolutely no excuse why nobody can be successful in this day and age. It's mind-blowing how many people will sit there and shoot themselves in the foot day in and day out and sit there and bitch, piss, and moan, but yet not do anything for themselves.
Okay, so as
you see,
I'm writing things down because I don't want to forget anything. The first thing I want to say,
hi, Nancy.
Her podcast is amazing. Thank you, Nance, for actually having me on your show. I love you.
She's in my group coaching program.
Yeah, thank you for being on my show. But I'm the kind of guy that I don't sugarcoat anything.
Good.
If you have a smartphone and you're still dumb, that's your fault. There's no reason to have a smartphone and be dumb. And I tell everybody, because if you're willing to spend $1,500 on the brand new iPhone, but not $1,000 on the coach that can make you $10,000, there's an issue. there's an issue there.
Oh,
Right.
huge. People are walking around with computers in their pocket, yet saying, I don't know. But you like the 5 people you surround yourself with the most. So write down on the piece of paper the 5 people you're around the most. And are they doing the stuff that you want to do? Are they in a place in their life where you want to be? And if they're not, you need to get new people in that spot.
And something else I wanted to ask you about is,
ask me anything.
Like for me, my priorities are God, family and friends, and business. If it doesn't have to do with those 3 things, I'm probably going to say no. And I think no is the most powerful word in the English language, because sometimes we just say yes to everything and it takes us farther and farther away from our goals. So what about the word no?
I love it. That was one of my biggest challenges in my life. I was a people pleaser because I was looking to external people for my validation, because I never got that as a kid. I never got, hey, Chris, you did a good job. It was constantly, you fuck up, you shit, you suck, you're terrible, you're stupid. I got bullied by kids at school. I got bullied by kids on my street. I got beat by my mom at my house. I grew up with zero self-confidence. So when people see me step on stage in front of thousands of people or see me on my podcast, they're like, oh my God, Chris, you're so confident. You're so energetic. I'm like, I've had to bust my ass at it. You know, back in the day before we carried freaking mobile computers in our pocket, I would go to the library and somebody had turned me on to cassette tapes. I was just telling the story the other day. Somebody, when I was staying at that sleazy motel, they gave me a box of tapes that were like this. It was Tony Robbins' Personal Power 1. And this guy, who was a really nice guy, he was down on his luck, but he was staying in the motel. He says, you know, listen to these. And Richard, it was my first opportunity before meeting Bill to hear that you could be positive, that you could rewrite your brain chemistry. And so after I got done with all those, it was like 10 or 20 tapes, whatever it was, I went to the library, the Anaheim Public Library, swearing my cat's grave, everybody's grave, my mom's grave. And I would go there and I would check out Brian Tracy tapes, Les Brown tapes. Anybody who knows Les Brown, I got to work with Les Brown in Los Angeles, and there's a whole story behind that. But I got to meet the guy I used to listen to the cassette tapes on, because I invested myself, because I didn't, still partying and doing things, but I made it a priority to pour into myself, right? We have to self-love ourselves first. And so many people give that away. So when you say no to things that don't serve you, and you say no to yourself, like, oh, I'm about to put, like Nancy just mentioned, donuts, like you're putting all this junk in your mouth and you're sitting there thinking, oh, one day I'll take care of myself. That one day never comes. Usually what happens is people go to the doctor and find out they got cholesterol, they got diabetes, they got cancer, they got heart disease, they got whatever. And then they go, oh, shucks, well, I guess I'll have to take some pills. And then they take pills and keep doing the same shit, and then they die. And so for me, you got to say no to the things that you're telling yourself. You got to say no to the people that are taking advantage of you. And you got to start saying yes to the things that were going to empower you. Say yes to the actions that are going to be tough. But at the ultimate end of the day, if you're creating a legacy that if you died tomorrow, you want the people to show up and say, hey, Richard was an amazing guy. He went through all those challenges, but yet he took it as responsibility to change his life. He went through all these adverse situations, but he was a beam of light. I'm trying to say 2 different words at once. We had that opportunity every single day to write our legacy, but yet so many people are playing that someday game. Like someday when the kids are out of school, and someday when my ex-husband's not an asshole, and someday when I have more money, and someday this. I just had a personal friend of mine die last week, and it's really, really affected me. We don't get tomorrow. Tomorrow is a gift. Today is a gift. These moments are a gift. Yes. And so when you start saying yes to, like, I'm going to start treating myself better. I'm going to stop telling myself that I always screw up and I never can do anything right. I'm going to start saying perhaps if I get a coach, perhaps if I read a book a month, perhaps if I watch a YouTube video every single day, I'll get smarter and I'll do things differently, and I'll get different outcomes, and I'll build my self-confidence up in such a way that I'll be able to trust and love and welcome people into my life. I'm living proof. When I tell people, like, if I can do it, you can do it, that is no bullshit. I literally had the most fucked up childhood, but yet I'm still here today, and I'm a loving person. I love all of humanity. I don't care if you're black, white, straight, gay, trans, Republican, Democrat, whatever label you want to put on it. I love all people in humanity, and I was not that person. So you got to start saying yes, but saying no to the things that don't serve you is so massively important, and start today.
And I love that.
Get passionate.
12 years ago, when I lost 80% of my vision. And when I was a kid, I used to watch the Tony Robbins infomercials at night. I'm like, that's bullshit. I'm like, he's walking on fire. That's all bullshit. Until I picked up Awaken the Giant Within again as an adult. as an adult, and then I'm
Have it
like,
right up there.
there it is. You can change the tape. Well, tape, as you know, I'm old, but you can use your RAS and you can change the tape using NLP. You don't have to go by that tape anymore. So talk about that you can literally, and it's not woo-woo. We talked about that on Mental Health Warriors. It's not woo-woo. It's science that you can literally change your mind. Talk about
You can. Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned that book. I mean, Great Minds Think Alike. Awaken the Giant Within was one of the books that my wife started reading. She's like, and it was a big book, and she's like, I can't get into this stuff. You know, it makes me sleepy. So she gave me the book, and I took it to the gym, and I remember I was on the Stairmaster. I would not get off the Stairmaster because I got so hooked on the fact, like, you can rewire your brain chemistry. You can have different beliefs. You can take responsibility for your life, and it really is just about that. It's about making that determination to decide that you're worth it, because so many people don't love themselves. They don't forgive themselves. They hate themselves. They betray themselves. They sabotage themselves, all based on what other people have said about them, right? You know, we usually become the person that we're going to become between the ages 0 and 5, 0 and 7 in some situations, depending on the psychology you look at. For me, when I see people that are struggling, I tell them, like, tell me about a time in your childhood where you developed this belief. And without fail, somebody will go, well, let me think about that. And I'm like, oh, I think it was when my teacher said this, or when my parent did this, or when my sibling said this, or when my pastor said this, or when I saw this in a movie. You develop that belief. And like, just to point out what you've been talking about, the RAS system is so massive, right? If everybody watching this and listening to this, look around your room and tell me everything that's red. 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 Okay, Chris, I know everything that's red. Okay, cool. Tell me what was blue. Well, Chris, you were telling me to look at what's red. I didn't see anything that was blue because I was looking at red. The same exact thing applies in your life, ladies and gentlemen. If you're looking for the things that are wrong and for the people that are going to screw you over and the people that are not using their turn signals, whatever it might be, if you're looking for that, you're going to find that validation. You're going to find that evidence that it exists. But if you sit there and look at, okay, where can I look at the opportunities, the possibilities? What is it that I can personally take that responsibility for and do this? Because oftentimes we're like, I'm screwed up because of my mom. I'm screwed up because, the government should do this, or whatever it might be. You're giving your power away. You're giving your power away. And that's what, these greats teach us, is that you can take back your power. And if I had not taken back my power, I would have probably be dead. I'd either be dead or in jail. That's probably a matter of fact. I probably would have gone insane taking care of my mother. But because I took that tough decision, I heard her call me all those names. But because of that, she got stronger. And because I took that action, doors started opening, and then opportunities started opening. And I just kept pushing, and I just kept trying, and I just kept showing up every single day in every single way. People are like, how are you doing this? I'm like, I'm just doing it. I don't think about it. I just show up and I figure it the fuck out. That's what I always say. Figure it the fuck out. FFO. When you show up and you figure it out. And so when you take that responsibility to pour that information into yourself, and for me, when I started joining masterminds and getting coaches and having personal board of advisors in my life, which I have right now, I have people I can go to when I have those tough days and be like, okay, I'm sick and tired of this, and I don't know what's going on with this. I have people that will say, Chris, okay, you want some tough love? Like, fucking bring it. Okay, Chris, here's what I see that you could do differently. And I listen, and I don't take it offensively. I take it that they care. And so when you have those people that are not going to always placate you and say, yeah, you suck because your parents were shitty. I'll tell you this quick story. My sister and I became estranged when I was 9 years old. She's 7 years older than me. So she left home when she was 16. She's like, I can't take mom anymore. I'm going to go live with my dad. We had different dads. I never met my dad. And I didn't see her from the age of 9 until I was in my 30s. And so when I reconnected with her, I figured she was going to be happy, successful, and all these things because she went to live with her dad, who was normal, and he got remarried, and she had a new mom. And I thought her life was probably amazing. I meet her, Richard, I can't make this up. She turned out exactly like my mom. Exactly. She left when she was 16. She went to the same career. She had a house full of cats. She had a house full of books. And more importantly, she blamed everybody and everything for why she got fired from every job that she had, why every relationship she had was ruined. She blamed my mother. It's mom's fault. It's mom's fault. It's mom's fault. And then one day, I've got my master's degree. I own my own house. I've got a successful career. She looks at me and she says, baby brother, how did you not turn out like mom? And I didn't even hesitate. I looked her straight in the face. I said, because I fucking chose not to. I said, mom was not a people person. She was not friendly. She had to always be, she always had to be right. I said, I learned about people. I studied Abraham Lincoln. I studied all the greats. I studied the Jack Welch from GE. I studied all these amazing people out there who were interested in people who would listen and seek first to understand, as Stephen Covey talks about it. And so I had to work because my original innate persona, I guess, if you will, is like my mom. It's very sarcastic. It's very dry. It's very fuck you. But I stop and I sit there and, okay, I realize, okay, where's this person coming from? How can I understand what it is? How can I see things from their perspective? And it's not easy, but over time I became a different person and I was able to be successful based on that. And ultimately I had to wish my sister well a year after meeting her because she was so stuck in her victimness that there was nothing I could do, even as a coach. There was nothing I could do because she was sold. She was sold that her life was going to be horrible and it was all mom's fault. Your mom, she would say, your mom. I'm like, she's your mom too. And so I sent her an email in about a year after reconnecting with her. And I said, please don't ever contact me again. I wish you all the best. I hope you have an amazing life, but I don't want you any part of it. And I've never talking to her again.
All right. So I know we're coming down on a hard close, but if somebody wants to unfuck themselves and needs help, because I need help, I have a physical mentor, I have a financial coach, I have a spiritual coach, I have a relationship coach. So for me, even the greats like Tom Brady, they love to be coached up. So if you want, even the greats, Tony Robbins, Ed Milet, Tim Ferriss, they all have coaches. There's a reason why. So if somebody wants to unfuck themselves and have you coach, because I know you and Nance work hand in hand together, how can we get in touch with you? How do we support you? How do we find you?
Dude, this has been an amazing conversation. You asked some awesome questions. I know I get long-winded in my answers, but no, thank you for this, Richard. I appreciate it. And I read your book, and so I'm excited to have you on my show. People can check out my show, Raw and Unscripted. You can go to rawandunscripted.com. It's on podcast platforms everywhere. We've been doing it for 5 years. Just had an amazing show last night talking about procrastination. But people can get a hold of me by going to noexcusescoach.com. They can find my YouTube where I have almost 1,000 videos between my podcasts, between my short videos, between my long form videos. If you cannot afford to work with me in any way, shape, or form, everything I would coach you on is on my YouTube. Literally, if people went and absorbed the podcast and the long form and the short form videos over the last, I don't know how many years I've been doing it, all of it's there, but they can go to noexcusescoach.com. They can go over to the coaching tab. And what I've got going on right now is something that I'm doing out of the goodness of my heart. I don't make a hell of a lot of money at it, to be perfectly honest. I did it because I had so many people coming to me saying, Chris, I can't afford to work with you one-on-one. Can you offer something where people can afford it? And so I created this group accountability coaching program that is stupid affordable. We meet twice a month on Zoom. We have a private Facebook group. We have, you get an accountability partner. You can literally coach with me for a fraction of what it normally costs me. I normally charge $300 an hour for my coaching. I just charged somebody a couple of days ago for this. This group coaching program that I do can be as low as $50 a month. And it's pretty insane. So they can go do that. They can work one-on-one with me. That's kind of the sweet spot. I've helped a ton of people get through being widows, being addicts, being all sorts of different things. So many success stories, lose weight. When people work with me, they generally, I can almost say this with 99.9% guarantee, they're successful. Because once you get out of the excuses, once you just start develop those patterns and those habits, and you start finding that you are capable of doing things, not only are you capable, but you have these special gifts within you that you should be sharing with the world. It's pretty incredible what you start to attract in your life when you raise that vibration and you start to feel like me. Like I was a suit and tie speaker. I was pretending to be somebody I wasn't. But once I just said, okay, I'm the bandana swearing, rock and roll, motorcycle, whatever guy, the no excuses dude. Once I raised that level of vibration, I was able to attract the right people into my life. You know, that's where I really started developing that legacy every single day. So I would love for people to connect with me, let them know that they've heard me on your show. I'll take care of them. If nobody's ever had a coaching session with me, I'll do a free coaching session just to give you an idea of what it's like to work with me. But I just thank and appreciate you, Richard, for having me on here. And thank you for sharing your story. This is what I really wanted to convey to you. Thank you for sharing your story, sending me your book, and shining your light every single day, because everybody listening to this and everybody watching this really should be at this point where they get to share their gifts, and we can all make this world a better place. Because at the end of the day, money and possessions and egoic validation are all great, but my sincere biggest goal in the world is to make this world a better place, to make it more inclusive, to not to have the divisiveness and the us versus them and the Bidens versus the Trumps and the this and the that and the the world is humanity, and we need to bring that love into our lives, into ourselves, and into other people, so that our kids and our kids' kids get to grow up in a world that's pretty amazing. So thank you, brother, for being here, thank you for having me here.
I just want to let you know something. You know what the greatest hour of my day was today? When I got up to do my cardio, and you're not going to be able to see my phone here. It's your podcast.
Oh, awesome.
It was the Unlock Your Potential, How to Stop Procrastinating and Start Living. That was my hour of my cardio. That's what I listened to today.
That was my show last night, right?
Yep, and that's what got me motivated. So, guys,
you're on fire.
Make sure you follow them, check them out, and I think we're doing a thing on Mental Health Warriors on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. But Christopher, I know you got to run, but I just want to say, brother, thank you. And I want to do a part 2 because we haven't even gotten to guitars, rock and roll, none of that. So I want to
let's do it, baby. Let's do it.
Part 2.
Let's do it. I've got tattoos of rock and roll music. I could talk music all day long. I've got so many experiences. So yeah, I would love to, man. It's definitely just the beginning.
I love it, guys. And remember, today we get to decide to be the victim or the victor. I love you guys. Remember, vertical momentum, the only way to go is up. Christopher, I love you, brother. And hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Be good.
Thank you to all the viewers and listeners.